What's up, guys? Matt Brown here for thelines.com. Let's talk some Monday Night Football. 49ers at the Vikings over here on thelines.com. Monday Night Football preview, as you can see. Head on down here and take a look. We are sitting a cheap 7, so expensive 7 if you want to take the points with Minnesota. 43.5 is the total pretty much across the board here in the industry. Big news is the injury news in this game. Pretty clean injury report from Minnesota outside of the guys we knew were out no matter what. You know, Jefferson, of course, being the name there. But on the 49ers side of things, we do have 2 major injuries. And then just coming through right before we recorded this, Adam Schefter letting us know some news on the other. The thing we know about people that are out. We are going to have Trent Williams out, one of the very best offensive linemen in all the NFL. We are also going to have Deebo Samuel out for San Francisco tonight. One of the best kind of Swiss Army knife gadget players there is in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey was questionable, apparently dealing with some sort of actual slight tear in his oblique or abdomen or something like that. But Adam Schefter comes through, says he's going to give it a go tonight. Now, that whether that means full workload or not, to be determined. But Christian McCaffrey is at least going to give it a go tonight for the San Francisco 49ers. So, guys, everything we do, absolutely free. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Up here in the corner, you see that little Discord button, talking NFL, NBA, golf, every single thing, college basketball as it gets going over there 24/7. So be sure and take advantage of that. I'll scroll down so you can start to read a little bit about the preview here. So this is a battle of teams in which we have a Minnesota offense that, if you strip out the untimely turnovers, actually has one of the highest EPAs and has been efficient as any team in the NFL. But the problem is it doesn't matter if you drive it down inside the 10-yard line or inside the 15-yard line or whatever. If you fumble it or turn it over, then, you know, your expected points added, your EPA is always going to be lower. So that's why when you look at these advanced stats with them, it looks like they're kind of league average on the offensive side. But if you strip out the kind of fluke turnovers and stuff with the fumbles, that actually is one of the better offenses in the NFL. We know that San Francisco grades out super, super well, pretty much across the board in just about everything. Their rush defense, I guess, would be the one thing that you could kind of try and poke a hole at if you wanted to. But really, elite stats from the offensive side, elite stats from the defensive side, nothing that you don't already know from the San Francisco side of things. So what are we trying to figure out as far as like a side or a total or any of that? And like, you know, listen, total seems about appropriate. Does this game seem very much like San Francisco plays into the low 20s and Minnesota could play into the high teens, low 20s, and then puts us kind of right on that 43-ish number? Yeah, I mean, it seems very likely that that could be the scenario in this one. So nothing that I'm incredibly interested in on the side. If I had to play it, I mean, on the total, look, if I had to play it, I think that there is at least something in me that leans to the fact that maybe San Francisco has to play at least a little bit differently with Christian McCaffrey out there. And maybe this defense is, you know, still just super elite like they were last year, and that Minnesota is going to stumble a little bit. I mean, if I had to play it, I'd lean towards the under, but not a strong lean for me. Certainly would take the full touchdown if I had to do that. This is I think the full touchdown's a little bit too much with a banged up McCaffrey, no Trent Williams, and then also no Deebo Samuel. This offense is going to have to function differently than it has so far this season. And if you look, Minnesota's offense is also good enough with it being the full touchdown. They're good enough to get a backdoor cover for you, right? I mean, like Kirk Cousins YOLOing it down the field to these guys to get within 7, I think is something that's very much within the range of outcomes if they get down, you know, double digits in this thing. And so for me, I think I'm always taking the points here with the Vikings. That being said, not one of the strongest plays of the week for me, for sure. Mainly because what we're getting for San Francisco is they have the 9th highest pressure rate in the NFL without having to blitz. They're 29th in blitzing, so I mean they're almost dead last. So the line just gets there, right? The front 4 gets there. They can leave everybody in coverage, and if that's typically bad for quarterbacks a lot of the time, right? I mean, that's the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause in this is that defensive line could just eat up this offensive line, and then Kirk Cousins just under duress all night long, and which honestly could lead us to some props, right? And which is kind of where I feel like this game for me, from a betting aspect, is a little bit more juicy. And we'll go back to the homepage here over on the lines, and you can see this prop tool. And if you're not using the prop tool, what are you doing? It's like one of the best things we have over there. So you can type in anybody's name. And so for me, I know that Alexander Mattison isn't really thought of as a pass catching back, but I do wonder, and it would be a yardage standpoint, and it's like 15.5 would be what we'd be looking at here. But I do wonder from a yardage standpoint, if we do get a bunch of pressure on Kirk Cousins, you don't have Jefferson out there, maybe they put a little bit more attention on Hawkinson. Do we just get a few dump offs, right, to Mattison in this game? Everybody, Kirk Cousins, no time to throw. Everyone's coming at him a ton. How do you try to get these guys to not pin their ears back and come after you a ton? You have to do little screen passes, right? You have to do little stuff like that to get them in the backfield and dump it over their head. And of course, Mattison would be the recipient of that as well. Something as low as 15.5, or even if you find, even if this ticks to 16.5, or if you want the lower juice on the 17.5, that to me is kind of how I want to attack this game. That I believe in San Francisco's, I believe in San Francisco's defense. I believe in that pressure rate. I believe that they will continue to have that pressure rate against Kirk Cousins and company tonight. And so with that, Mattison becomes the recipient of some dump-off passes. So do like Mattison from a prop perspective as well. On the other side, and this one's taking a little bit of leap of faith, with George Kittle. And the reason is because, shockingly, even though Minnesota's defense is pretty much kind of like league average to a little bit below league average, they've been really good against tight ends so far this season, which is a little odd. But I'm going with the lack of Deebo Samuel, the lack of Trent Williams, and what I assume will be a limited role for Christian McCaffrey in this game. And where does that then lead some of the who is the beneficiary most likely of that? And I think that Kittle becomes that. Minnesota blitzes basically every other play, right? I mean, they have the number one blitz rate by a ton in the NFL. And so when you look at how they are going to go about playing defense, that's just what Brian Flores does. And so if you look without Trent Williams out there, maybe it gets home a little bit more than it has. I mean, they're about league average, 15th in pressure rate, despite the fact that they blitz the number one rate in the NFL. But maybe with Trent Williams not being out there, that they get home a few more times. And where does then Brock Purdy go with the ball, right? I mean, it's the closer to the line, it's the high percentage throws, it's the stuff that Kittle does and that Kittle does well. And so I'm looking at kind of Kittle overs here, whether it be receptions. Honestly, like plus money on any of these reception stuff seems pretty interesting. And then of course 47.5. Like I said, leap of faith here in where they're going to go with some of these targets that, who gets the extra looks with Deebo not being out there, with McCaffrey probably not getting his full complement of snaps in this game, with maybe some pressure getting home a little bit more than it usually does, considering Trent Williams is gone and they're facing the number one blitz team in the NFL. So let's hope that Kittle actually becomes the recipient of that. Like the Mattison bet better than I like the Kittle bet, but both of those going to be in the account for me tonight. That's where I'm looking tonight, guys. A couple of prop plays, and that's about it. I do think from a live betting standpoint, I know everyone likes to come on here, and it seems like it's a cop-out whenever you're like, oh, live betting, whatever. But I do think from a live betting standpoint that this game does provide at least a little bit of interest, something interesting here, which is mainly that since we're sitting at 7, and this is something that you can – I know people talk about live betting stuff, and then it's very easy to forget as the game gets going, like, oh man, I meant to make that bet if it did this, or I get all that. Trust me, it happens to me too. But this one's like right at the beginning of the game, so maybe we can go in with a plan as soon as kickoff comes. But if for whatever reason San Francisco gets the ball first, or even if they don't get the ball first, even if they score first in this game, and this thing gets well on the other side of 7, I think then, like I said, I gave you the reasoning why I kind of like the Vikings anyway at +7. The kind of backdoor cover factor is always there with Kirk Cousins YOLOing it down the field. And honestly, San Francisco, from a defensive standpoint, if you look at these games in the blowouts, they do play a little bit looser. They do play a little bit more, and as they should, right? I mean, there's no reason to getting your guys hurt and all that. And so for me, I look at this and say, all right, San Francisco scores, even if it's a field goal, even if we get this thing on at 7.5, 8.5, whatever it might be on the Vikings, I think that's a pretty good time to pounce. I know we're rolling the dice, right? If you don't want to put the 7 in there and you're like, oh, I want to wait and see if I can get a 7.5 or an 8, 8.5, hell, maybe a 10 at some point. I know that's rolling the dice because what if Minnesota gets the ball first and goes right down the field and scores, and then that strategy is right out the window. So again, just do it at your own risk, or maybe if you want to put, half a unit on this and save a half, if you want to come in a little bit later in the game, there's something that you can go with that. But it's a live betting strategy that you don't have to like remember in the third quarter or something or whatever. This one's just right off the bat and happens at the top of the game. Guys, everything to do, absolutely free. Again, so please hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Let us know in the comment section how you're going to play this game. Not a ton of love on the side and total for me. Like I said, certainly a big lean to the Vikings and a little bit of a lean towards the under, but more of those two props that I like tonight. And of course, you can get over in the Discord right here. Boom, right there, upper right-hand corner, and everyone will be sharing their thoughts as well. Maybe you'll get an idea how you want to go about playing this game. Good luck on all your Monday Night Football bets.